Well, guys, today's the last day of notes from me, so that's kind of crazy, right? Um, let's let's do it. So, the last lesson before the test is 8.6 political challenges in the modern world. So, our essential questions for today, there are two of them. What are the goals and structure of the United Nations, and what international security issues confront the post Cold War world? So, we're going to really just look at a lot of the international organizations and then kind of move into to things like that. Um, So first is global awareness. So we've seen a lot of social movements that have emerged that address problems common to many nations. These problems include environmental damage and war. Transnational organizations and non-governmental organizations, NGOs. Among the groups that address international problems are transnational organizations and non-governmental organizations. These organizations include groups that provide medical care, work for peace, and promote human rights, or sometimes all three. Their key functions are to raise awareness, provide services, and advocate public policy changes to address social issues. They try to use grassroots efforts and political strategies to bring about local, national, or international change. And they try to impact policy decisions through expertise and information, and to draw membership from one or more countries. So, really, you got a bunch of countries together that are trying to change the world for the better. One of those is the United Nations. So, the United Nations, their key goal is to maintain world peace. So everything that they do, like the main goal is to maintain that world peace. They do it through, they say, friendship and cooperation, right? Working together, talking things out, discussing issues. Right, they meet together and talk about these things. The United Nations goals in globalism. The UN is one of the major institutions of the new globalism. Two of its goals are peace and human dignity. Right, so once again, the whole peace and making the world a better place. How it's structured, so they have representatives of the nations of the world, make up a General Assembly. They also have a Security Council that advises the General Assembly, especially when it's like things that deal with like potential war. The UN Secretariat is an administrative body headed by the Secretary General. The World Court acts as the judiciary of the UN. Other specialized agencies and programs deal with economic and social problems. So it's kind of set up kind of like a government, right, where you have like a legislative branch and a judicial branch, but then they also have like other branches that deal with like poverty, hunger, right, children, stuff like that. The United Nations is also like their big thing is that they're a peacekeeper. So member states provide military forces that serve to maintain order and oversee troubled places in the world. So if you're a member of the United Nations and you have a military, right, you have to essentially like give them some of your military forces so that they can like do things to maintain peace. Under the United Nations, so we have UNICEF, which is the United Nations Children's Fund. This is kind of a branch of the United Nations that their whole goal is to help better the lives of like children around the world. So that could be like getting food, right, to kids who are, hungry and hunger. It could be making sure kids have good living conditions, giving kids opportunities for like education around the world, especially in these developing areas that see like a lot more poverty. The UN International Court of Justice is also known as the World Court, right? So this is kind of like their judicial branch. With this, so they would have trials and try world leaders for like world war crimes and like bad stuff. And then they also settle disputes between countries. NATO is a different group, so this is not the United Nations, but NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We've talked about it before in this class. So this was the kind of anti-USSR group during the Cold War. So, right, we have like the United States, Canada, Great Britain, right, France. So North Atlantic. So lots of Western European countries and the United States and Canada are part of NATO. The Red Cross is a NGO that's a non-government organization. So technically it's like a company, right? Or a non-profit would be more accurate. They're a humanitarian organization that provides emergency assistance, disaster relief, and disaster preparedness education. So part of that could be too, like if any of you are lifeguards, right, you need to be like CPR certified. The American Red Cross can get you CPR certified, right? So that's like part of it. Or a lot of times, like if you donate blood, it could be through like the Red Cross. They do like blood drives and stuff. The World Trade Organization, the WTO, they deal with the rules of trade between different countries. So they negotiate like taxes and trade deals and tariffs and all that kind of stuff. So it's dealing with the economy, but like on the global scale. So it's dealing with the global economy and having different countries work together. NAFTA is the North American Free Trade Agreement. This is like especially a really big deal in the 1990s, but still is a big deal today. There's been issues with it, of course, but this is between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Originally, the idea was that the North American countries, if something was produced in, say, the United States, like let's say we made a product in the United States, we could have it sold in Canada without having like taxes when it like goes across the border, kind of a thing. So goals and structure of the United Nations. So goals is to maintain world peace. Structure, so they have like a judicial kind of branch. They have a General Assembly, which is kind of like a legislative branch, and then they have other branches that deal with different things. What role do transnational non-governmental organizations play in the international arena? So, I mean, they help world trade, they help disaster relief, they help children specifically, like poverty situations, they try leaders for war crimes, right? There's lots of stuff going on there. Okay, so international security. So nuclear proliferation. So the United Nations established the International Atomic Energy Agency, which tries to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. So it's like a group of people, right, that represent different countries that try and prevent more nukes from being made. Nonetheless, India, Pakistan, Israel, Iran, and North Korea have openly or secretly tested nuclear weapons in recent years. Even though the United Nations is like, please don't do that. Please don't do that again. Yeah. Weapons of mass destruction. Biological and chemical weapons also pose dangers. Chemical weapons were used extensively as long ago as World War I, and biowarfare was used in the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. Governments began to fear the use of biological or chemical weapons in a future attack. There's like stuff in the United Nations against chemical and biological weapons and like what ones are allowed, what ones aren't allowed, and that kind of stuff. But it is still like a worry. Terrorism. So the 1972 attack at the Olympic Games was one of the acts of terror to first gain worldwide attention. Other terrorist groups have included the Irish Republican Army, the ETA in Spain, and the Shining Path in Peru. Attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon led the United States to begin a war on terrorism. That is like specifically focused in like the Middle East. There's also been lots of other challenges in the Middle East. So a lot of the terrorism in the Middle East targets Westerners. Western investments in Middle Eastern oil have brought wealth to ruling families, but done little to improve the lives of the poor in Middle Eastern countries. In an effort to combat terrorism, the United States invaded Iraq in 2003, but failed to find the weapons of mass destruction claimed to be in the country. So, international security issues that confront the world. So, still like threat of nuclear missiles, threat of chemical warfare and biological warfare, and terrorism. So this goes, we're going to look at some different areas of the world. So in Africa, ethnic and religious conflicts escalated into civil wars in the Darfur region of Sudan in the 2000s. In Rwanda, the Hutu and Tutsi had ethnic conflicts that became genocide with the slaughter of about 500,000 Tutsis by the majority Hutu. Sorry. But yeah, lots of people died in like civil wars in Africa. In Asia, the Chinese government suppressed ethnic minorities, which has caused like lots of issues. Latin America, issues with like Brazil, Venezuela, and there we go. I hope you guys have a great day, and someone's trying to call me, so yeah, I miss you guys, and yeah.